Hello, everybody, and welcome to the OSINT Curious Project's live stream. I am thrilled to welcome you here and also to welcome my wonderful colleague, Christina. Welcome to the live stream.
Welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to be here once again. My name is Christina Lecate, and Micah, we usually also share the Twitter handles. Mine
Yep,
is Christina Lecate, so pretty straightforward. And yours?
mine's Web Breacher. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Christina, I'm noticing that there's somebody missing here. This was supposed to be a talk about Sector 035 and his IP address, IP address location blog post. Could you tell our audience what happened?
I mean, in the end, it's just the two of us. Unfortunately, Sector could not make it today. He had some, and I had some interruptions right now. But okay, Sector had bigger, more invasive interruptions. He couldn't come, unfortunately, for a small health issue, but we are still going to tease his article a little bit, and we are going to talk about it next week.
Yep. So we'll talk a little bit about his blog post today for those of you that came for that. And for those of you that really want to see and, well, want to hear Sector, he'll be here next week and we'll do that. But for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, maybe you saw us on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch and said, what is this OSINT Curious thing? That's what we are. We are people that are inspired by open source intelligence or OSINT, and we love sharing information about open source intelligence with our community on Twitter, on Twitch, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And Christina showed at the bottom of the screen when we started out, we had our website, our Patreon patron page. There it is again. Our Discord, if
Mm,
you want to hook up with us, it's all there. And I see that we have some longtime loyal viewers out there.
really nice to see you.
Yeah, Lord Marcus, it's been a while. Danny, wow, this is like old times here, Christina. Now, Christina,
Good group.
you and I are not going to like really dive into Sector's blog because we want him to talk about it. But we are
Yes.
going to talk about it a little bit. What else are we going to talk about in the next half hour or so?
We decided we should restart covering some OSINT news. So the following streams will cover. Okay, I spoiled the beans, Micah.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay.
We
It's
will
absolutely
cover some OSINT news in the following streams. We will start today, and today we have sectors article. Okay, but we won't really cover it. We are going to talk about some tools that came out and could help you out in one way or another in your investigations. Specifically, one called Cleanup.Pictures. Not gonna say more right now. We're going to talk about intelligence analysis and what our feelings have to do with it, and more on intelligence processing, I would say, and documentation. Micah, we will also have a short conversation about Obsidian.
very
I
cool.
know you're excited about this.
I am excited. I am excited. I'm excited to see all my live streaming friends like Abdullah Monim,
Yeah.
Bashino, and everybody else. So this is a live stream. This is not a webcast. So if you are on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch and you're watching us live, say hi to us in the comments. Let us know you're out there and please participate in the conversation. Christina and I are going to talk about some topics like she mentioned, but we want to hear about your experiences too, because this truly is a community live stream. Right, Christina?
Exactly. And we are running it with you.
That's right. Absolutely. Cool. So Christina, shall we go ahead and start off with just talking a little bit about what sector wrote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sector, yeah, I don't know how many of you have read it so far. It is the OSINT Curious, the new OSINT Curious blog post about the location of an IP address. He talks about how accurate is geolocating an IP address, but also what the dangers of relying too much on a specific geolocation of an IP address is. I won't go through the way he worked his article, but I will briefly mention that it can be pretty confusing when you run one of the main platforms that help you with IP geolocation to really pin down an accurate even country sometimes. And I really like the fact that he includes one of the dangers, the danger of relying too heavily on one specific point on the map that many IP geolocation providers offer. He refers to an article by Gizmodo up there. Yeah, you can all see it exactly. And it shows that mainly IP addresses can give you a ratio, like a radius of where the IP is located, but many people don't perceive it as a radius. They perceive it as a specific point
Yeah.
on the map, and that can be the first of all, it's false. Second of all, it can be dangerous for the people who live on that point on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a very famous example of people in the United States over here when MaxMind, the company
Yeah.
that, yeah, that's what you're thinking about.
Yes.
MaxMind picked a place in the center of the United States for any IP addresses that didn't know where they were. And there happened to be people living on a farm there, and they were harassed. They had police officers come in and try to serve warrants on people that weren't there. And so I agree with you. I love the demystification that sector goes through to tell you that this is not an exact science. We don't have pinpoint accuracy, at least within the open source community, um, of where an IP address is. At best case, it's probably within the scope of a city or a town. But yeah, it's a
You know,
great article.
Micah, it's really shocking because for that specific address that you are mentioning, there were about 90 million IP addresses that were leading back to this one house.
Yep.
So, yeah, pretty horrible. And we also, it is kind of a cautionary tale on reading the fine print when we use a tool and not just taking all the information we gather on at face value.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
and that's something that I saw somebody tweet about, and we've tweeted and posted many articles about tools give you part of the picture. Understanding how those tools work give you that complete picture of what's out there, and you have to know the strengths and the weaknesses of the tools, whether it's a website or whether it's something like Ping or Traceroute. Understanding how those all work so that you can make the best analysis of the data coming back.
Yes, I think many people tend to want the fast and easy solution or to just type in something and have an answer come right out. But in reality, we have to question our process and our tools and to look into them and research them a lot more than that. A lot more
Agreed.
than
Yep. And if you look in the chat, so one of the things that we like doing here is highlighting chat comments of yours. Doc,
I think
right,
I
right.
know.
Yeah,
I was looking at the same one.
yeah. Doc will and says verify, confirm, and use at least 3 points of contact. I love that. We always have to seek that confirmation. We always have to seek verification and validation of the sources that we use and the data that we find from those sources. Otherwise, it may not be as accurate as that could be. Thanks, Doc.
And know your tools, as they say.
Yeah. So, Christina, since we're not going to be going over sectors blog post, would it be appropriate for us to continue using sectors maybe a week in OSINT and go through some of those sources?
Always.
Always. All right.
Absolutely. We
Cool.
love sectors we can know and they heavily
Yeah,
rely on this newsletter.
absolutely. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the week in OSINT. If you haven't seen it, let's see. Oh, there we go. If you haven't seen it, I'm pasting it into the chat now. For those of you that are on LinkedIn, we don't have the ability to post into LinkedIn right now, but it's sector035.nl and he has links to it. And every week, Sector takes his own personal time to collate a bunch of interesting articles, blog posts, social media posts about OSINT, and he's been doing it for a while. So one of the first ones in here is this Geowifi tool. Now, Christina, I love Wi-Fi. I used to do things in Wi-Fi for a while, and one of the things I love about it is that there's so much open data out there. And Gonzo's written a tool, and his tool is kind of neat because it aggregates Wi-Fi data from multiple sources, which literally were just talking about. So instead of
Mhm.
just grabbing that data from Weigel.net, which is many times the authoritative source for all things wireless, Gonzo's tool, Geowifi, on GitHub and available through the Week in OSINT. Gonzo's tool, Geowifi, accesses several different databases here. It does require that you have Python 3 on your system. He shows you how to install and use it. And there's even a map of the output. This is a really, really useful free Python tool to get into the world of OSINT. Now, if you're going to be using it with Weigel, you have to sign up on Weigel for at Weigel.net for a free account and then get your API key. Again, it's all free, but you do have to go through that extra step. Get that API key, put it into a configuration file, and then you can use the tool. Um, so love that. Love that he released it to the public, and that's a useful tool. Now, you were talking about this Cleanup.Pictures as well. You want to tell, I'm going to
Mhm.
switch back to the week in OSINT so you can just see this, but can you tell people a little bit about what Cleanup.Pictures does?
So the cleanup in the cleanup pictures, you can upload a picture like the name suggests, and you can select specific elements that you erase from the pictures. In this example, we have the car, and you can just erase the car and have a very actually all the cars from the street.
Yeah, I was just seeing that. It's all the
Yeah,
cars.
I just saw that as well. I was experimenting with different pictures earlier today. I would say this is very, very helpful when you're doing sock mint, when you want to
What's Sockmint?
geolocate. Oh, I'm sorry, Micah. You're right. When you're doing social media intelligence and when you go through the images, you select an image and you want to try to geolocate the image based on one specific point that is pictured right there. For example, a landmark. Let's say you find a picture, you want to see where the person was standing when they took it. You want to isolate this specific landmark through reverse and run it through Yandex, do a reverse image search. But your landmark has trees in front of it, there are cars, there is all kinds of things. You download the image, you take it on Cleanup.Pictures, take out all the distractions, leaves, trees, cars, and then you can upload it on Yandex, crop that specific landmark, and run the search to see where this image was taken and whether you have relevant results coming out.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important tip that you just gave that sometimes the OSINT data that we collect in our investigations might be customized. You know, we have a picture of a person doing a selfie in front of something, and that person's really important to us, but we want to know more like where were they when they were taking this picture? And with them in the picture, we can't get that because maybe there's something important behind them. And if there are little things like a car that can be removed or other things, sometimes we can remove those objects, those people, and then get a better picture that can then be reverse image searched, and you can get more hints. So this is a really great tool. Now, we should also give an OPSEC warning, right? Or operational security
Mm,
warning that uploading your sensitive OSINT pictures to a third-party website can be something that you might not want to do because they then have your pictures. But if they're public pictures, probably not as big of a deal.
exactly.
Awesome.
Or more personal use, if you are at a conference or something and you take a picture but their face is behind you, you can protect those people's identity by running it through Cleanup.Pictures and just erasing the faces of the people that don't necessarily want to be on your social media accounts, which is
Ah. I like it. So you can use this to sanitize your pictures too. That is really cool. Also, you know, if there's something that I don't know, Christina, if you ever used Google Lens, the
mm,
Google app now that can look at a picture and figure out things. sometimes those get distracted and key in on something particular when you don't really want that to be focused on. And but Chino is actually just posted something in about that if there's something distracting that might be focused on for reverse image searching, you can remove it using this free tool. This is great. Great.
See, Micah, you are already starting to find different uses.
Yeah, that
I
well, that's
think
why I love talking with you about this and talking with the communities that, I have reasons why
exactly.
I might want it, but this is really cool.
Yeah, it's like a small brainstorming session when you find where you find different uses and you come across ideas you might not have thought about.
Yep.
That's why we're here.
That's that's why I love to do brainstorming sessions with thousands of my friends around the world. Yeah. So tell me about your feelings, Christina. What are your when you get into your OSINT investigations, do you let your feelings kind of rule what you see and do in there?
You know, Micah, I have the feeling that I shouldn't rely on my feelings anymore.
You have a feeling.
Nico has busted my bubble. It's
Yeah.
irreversible. There is nothing that can be done. But
Yeah.
I think we should mention that there is a big, like, or maybe I will put it differently. We use the terms gut feeling, intuition, and feelings in general. We use them interchangeably. And we want to rely on our intuition. It is important to rely on an intuition in an investigative process, but we should also question it at some point. And this is what Nico is talking about with this article that I think is really, really important to be said, and I'm glad he wrote about it. So if you scroll a little further down, there, go up, up.
Sorry.
That's perfect. He mentioned something that there is actually a lot of research on when it comes to intuition or a hunch, that it is mostly based on a combination of assumptions and past experiences. So our reptilian brains have logged the years of knowledge already before we were born, but also from the moment we are born and onwards, we collect experiences and they get stored in the back of our heads. And in the future, these become our hunches. If we see a situation and we feel like we have lived through that before, it's usually your mind warning you about a similar experience and telling you, probably the same line of events will happen here as well. So there is this little pre-warning. Also, if you have worked a lot of investigative cases, there are chances that you see similarities between your cases, and that therefore you will check different avenues or different leads or different ideas in your investigation based on those hunches and those previous experiences.
Yeah.
Now, what Nico is talking about in this article that I found very useful is that sometimes your biases and or past experiences that do not relate with the case you are working right now interfere with what you see right now and what you do, your beliefs, and that we should take a step back and kind of question ourselves and question also this gut feeling that we have. He doesn't say that we shouldn't use it, we should, but we should also make sure we are not being biased when we have a gut feeling.
Yeah. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to bounce ideas off of a second person because that person has different biases and has different feelings about the investigation and also can recognize when we're using more of our intuition and our maybe some of those biases in our work versus looking at the facts, working through them objectively and reducing bias. Um,
Yes.
this is actually something that really plays a part in a lot of investigations that are in more sensitive areas of abuse, trafficking, and really just some high emotional state investigations that many of our listeners and viewers actually might be doing. So make sure that you are aware of the this And there's a whole bunch more. Nico gives the link to the Wikipedia page on cognitive biases. There's a huge number of these cognitive biases, like over 130 of them, and you don't have to memorize them all, but realize that the logical fallacies, rhetorical fallacies, and the biases that are out there can really skew your investigations because they taint your analyses. So the more you realize that, the more you can remove it and hopefully have more objective investigations.
You know, Micah, you brought an excellent point up. You
I know
mentioned that some case, right? It even said
that.
we all know. Some cases that are sensitive, that are, involve abuse, yes, they tend to get your feelings up. But also in investigative psychology, there is a big research field dedicated on the stress that runs in an investigation, not only because of the material you get exposed to, but also because of time pressure and of the general stress of the department to come up with an answer, to come up with a solution to resolve the case.
Mm,
And especially when a case is public, the stress is even higher. And this is when we tend to fall back even more on those hunches, on like anything.
yeah,
Stress tends to sabotage our thinking processes a lot. And I think this is when you need to take a step back and to go through some questions in your head. And actually, Nico mentions a couple of those questions that I found very useful. If you scroll down a little, there, he says, ask questions. And maybe if you have them written somewhere and you take the time to get a step back, you can start asking yourself, why am I having this feeling or hunch? Is this based on the data that I'm seeing in front of me? Is this based on one of my past experiences? What data that I collected supports this feeling or hunch? But also, what data that I collected rules out this feeling or hunch, which I think is really it's a tiring question. Okay, it expands a lot of energy, but necessary. And I like that he also mentions the fact, can I find other sources that confirm or deny this feeling? Is there bias involved? And if yes, what form of bias?
yeah.
So there is a lot of mental debate. Oh my.
See,
Unbelievable.
I got. Oh, look at us. We're like
I had
twinsies.
it right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is you see how close this is. This is the structured analytic techniques, and maybe Christina, you can type it into the chat for our audience. Structured analytic techniques for intelligence analysis. This is a book that is fairly inexpensive. You can get it in most of the online marketplaces, but it is literally a handbook, a reference book for how do you think about things better? How do you analyze data more effectively, more openly, more objectively? And how can you recognize when that bias comes into play or when somebody else is using illogical arguments in their investigative work? It is really, really helpful.
Mike, I have a question for you. Do you ever stop in the middle of an investigation or a case, anything, and go to this book to just grab a couple of ideas on something you might be missing, even just by reading the titles,
I
the
would
chapter
like to say
titles?
yes, I'm smart enough to do that, but I I I am going to start doing that now, Christina. Is that something that you do?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, no, no,
that's why
please.
I had it. That's why I had it next to me today, because I got so stuck with one of those thoughts in my head and I had this endless debate. And I was like, okay, I have to stop right now, step outside, take a walk. And then I came back, sat with my data again, with my mind map. And then I just took this book and I went through the titles to see if there is something I'm missing. And it helped.
Wow. That yeah, sometimes taking a break. I have other techniques I use, including whiteboarding it. I'll bounce it off a colleague
Huh?
or a coworker, or I'll just say things. I'll just talk about it out loud, and I'll sometimes using multiple senses instead of just having that internal thinking, saying it out loud and then hearing yourself say, well, say something allows you to analyze things differently. And I've used this many times
Mm.
because if you and I are having conversation as you're talking, I'm hearing some of the things that you're saying. I'm like, that sounds like this might be happening. When I say it, I can't ignore the fact that I might be jumping to conclusions or using some bias in my work. So yeah,
This is
Trotwood
so
mentions
interesting.
power.
Hmm.
Um, yep, and that's essentially who wrote this, Richard Hauer, who also
Yes,
has a free PDF on the CIA's website. It's just excellent, excellent work. I like this a lot more than yeah, or you can buy the book. I
crazy.
personally like this a lot more. This feels more open
They are
to other
different.
fields. Yeah, this is the one that you have the PDF from Howard's. That's the psychology of intelligence analysis. If it was definitely more intelligence analysis, it felt like it
Mm.
was definitely geared more towards intelligence services and places like that.
It helps you lose some confidence, but in a
Yeah,
constructive way.
yeah, definitely. And Christina, that's one of the things I really love about OSINT is that you can be the best person at reverse image searching or removing certain things from pictures, but if you're not analyzing what the picture means within the scope of the investigation properly, you may still be failing. So there's a lot of other techniques, a lot of other strategies that we need to take into account when we're doing our investigations, not just, hey, here's a cool tool, let me use that and I win.
Yeah, mm-mm. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I think we should dedicate a stream on that topic alone. Micah, there is so much into it.
Yeah. Well, what techniques do you use for our audience that's live right now on YouTube, Twitch, and on LinkedIn? Share some of the techniques that you use to help reduce bias and rhetorical fallacy or logical fallacy from creeping into your investigations, your OSINT work, and from appearing in places like your final intelligence products or reports to your customer. Let us know. Oh yeah, Amy Herman.
Have you
I
read it?
I've got her book right
Ah,
over here. Yep. Um, Amy
yeah.
Herman does that visual intelligence. Um, I'll get her book. What the heck? Give her a little bit.
She also has some very good talks on YouTube. So whoever doesn't want to, yes, yes,
And I'm covering up her name. Now Amy Herman, she's a
it's on
great
the
speaker
comments.
too. If you ever get the chance
Exactly.
to listen to her, she actually has a degree in fine arts, I believe.
Yes.
And
And she
and she
uses art in her examples.
Yep, she uses art in her examples to break you out of what you're seeing, and I love some of the things that she's put in this book. Not to dote on her so much, but she uses art to show you to look at things differently. And honestly, Christina, I use a lot of her techniques when I'm playing GeoGuessr, and I know that I shouldn't be bringing things back to the world of GeoGuessr,
Why
but
didn't
that's
you tell me?
but the reality is, I mean, she talks about looking for what's not there in pictures, looking for the abstract things, the little nuances. And when you're looking at in this picture of Google's street maps, street view imagery, and you see the lack of a shadow, or you see some stripes that look like maybe a country's flag, and you're like, hey, that could be something that's important, but it really helps me break out of the, oh, I see a road, breaking down into what actually I'm seeing. So really, really
Micah,
awesome.
I, now I'm gonna start using it as well. You should have told me earlier.
Yeah, I do. I mean, and the other things that we're thinking about, the structured analytics techniques. Gosh, when we're playing GeoGuessr, absolutely doing
Mm.
that same thing. Um, you were talking earlier about how in Nico's blog post, he talks about how experience can taint your investigation. I can't tell you the number of times I've played GeoGuessr with my classes and just to have some fun, just to, look at things from a different perspective. And we'll be going down a road and somebody's like, Thailand. I say, well, what makes you think that? What are the things that you see? And they're like, well, it just looks like Thailand to me. And I said, well, are we on the left-hand side of the road? Do you see these little temples in people's yards, these little shrines in people's yards? Do you see Thai characters? And it turns out we're in Singapore instead of Thailand or something like that. So, a lot of the techniques that we're talking about apply to non-OSINT situations as well.
Actually, I remember you saying that during our streams. I remember you saying, yeah, we have like 5 points that direct us to say that it's a country X, but there are two more points that kind of compete with this hypothesis. So we should
Yep.
strengthen it, or we should find additional evidence, let's say, additional points.
One of my
But also
favorite,
the fact that you were questioning so much, like I remember our audience putting up brainstorming ideas on where we are supposed to see, and you were always like, but why?
yeah,
What makes you say that? Why? And it's
right?
always this why in your head. Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like a 2 or a 3-year-old. Why? 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 I want the facts behind the intuition, the facts behind what is. And many times it's the case. I played GeoGuessr with a recent class of mine just on our breaks, and one of the things that happened was we went to a place. And it was in a country that this person lived in. So he's like, "Oh, it's so and so." I'm like, "Well, tell me why." It's like, "Well, I know that street." It's like, "Oh, okay, you have specific experience for that." I get that. But a lot of times,
Uh
like
huh.
my best example of this is the difference between Canada and the United States in Street View. If you are in certain parts of Canada, the roads, the signs, even the names of people look exactly the same in Canada and the United States. And for some people, they're like, "Oh, that's the United States, 100%." I'm like, "Really?" Like, "Yeah." And then I go farther down the road. And this exact example happened to me not 2 weeks ago. I said, well, let's confirm Canada and the United States by looking for miles per hour or kilometers per hour. And not only did we get kilometers per hour showing that we're probably in Canada, there was a maple leaf flag that showed that we were in Canada. I was like, see? So we can go down those paths of inquiry and look for whatever data is out there that can prove or deny, confirm or deny our hypotheses.
Micah, this happened to me as well, and you were the one who corrected me when we played this game. Yeah,
Yeah,
you mentioned the example with US and Canada, and somebody wrote it in the comments as well.
yeah,
Amazing.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, it
But I
happens.
did it as well. I think we were looking at Germany, but I was thinking it's Austria because
Hmm.
some of the houses look so much alike, and the streets and the language for sure. And I was saying no, I believe it's Austria because I've lived there. And you were like, what else do you base that assumption
Yeah,
on? And I was like, the fact that I lived there,
you live there.
but it was not correct.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing is, what we did in that situation goes exactly back to our earlier conversation. You said, I feel strongly about this. My gut says this is where we are. And I was able to say, based upon my experience, that's great that you have this gut feeling, and we need to confirm or deny that. We need to look at what, like Purple says in the YouTube and YouTube chat. We need to look for those facts that give us more of the information that we need or more of the data that we need to make a better informed decision. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes it is just that simple, and sometimes it does not. Actually, Germany does have Street View. So for our Ono
Not
user,
on
yeah,
every street. Not on
not in
every
every street,
street.
but in several in many of the main cities they do. Yeah. Um, but you know what, Christina, I hate to do this, but a lot of the things that we've been talking about here absolutely relate to the artificial world of Street View and artificial world of GeoGuessr. You were talking about the pressure and the stress of time-based investigations.
I know
Do
where
you
this
know
is
why we
going.
don't do the daily challenges anymore? Because you only
Because of
get
the
three
time.
minutes. You only get 3 minutes, and that time-based pressure, one, it doesn't work with the delays of our audience here and them participating, but two, it just makes it more stressful for everybody. So yeah,
Doesn't it affect your decision making?
yeah, absolutely. You figure,
It
oh,
starts.
I only have a couple more minutes left. I'm just going to guess, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. I'm not saying don't
Uh,
ever test yourself and try to do these things that are pressure based, that are deadline based, but sometimes we learn better in other ways.
I just what I try to do in real life cases is not to procrastinate at all and start as early as possible because I hate this exact stress. I hate it. I hate
Yeah.
it. I hate it.
Yep.
And yeah, I think you're right. GeoGuessr is a very good example of many, many fallacies in intelligence analysis, but also it's a good practice for image intelligence because, like you said, with the what was the book visual? Ah, I
Visual
forget.
intelligence.
Visual intelligence, exactly. Um, you look at GeoGuessr and you run a similar analysis like you would do with an image. Not always, not in every regard, but it, it
Yep.
is pretty, yeah,
Well, and
similar.
the other thing is that you build up that experience of the tool, of the medium. When I'm going down a deserty road and I see Cyrillic and I look down at the Google Street View vehicle and I see the Google Street View side view mirrors of the car, I think this is Mongolia because I've been here before in this exact situation. And the more you get that experience inside of the tool, inside of the site with these types of imagery or data, the more comfortable you are saying, you know what, I've been burned before. Let's go and work through our process to continue to find more facts that will then drive our analysis to be even better.
So maybe if we have any newcomers here, it would be good to recommend this for practice because you have to train your eye and you have to train your thinking process. And this is a very, very good exercise. Oh, and maybe Micah, oh, I don't think I would mention this, but the OSINT Games platform could also be a very good training
Yeah,
ground.
absolutely. There's actually a lot of places. I just threw into the chat for those on YouTube and Twitch,
I was
geoguessr.com.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
many
good.
of you have already played that game. I like it because it's free or very low cost. At I think it's $20 per year for a paid account. But it's instead of watching TV, you can actually
Mm.
learn skills and explore the world. I just really like doing it, and there's so many analogous things to what you do in there and what you do in investigations too.
Can I bring up the comment from Purple? She says, working, or he, or they, working with, I don't know who's behind the account, but
You can
whoever
just call them purple.
you are right. Working without a time pressure allows you to create the process to deal with the time you have the timer sections. So basically, what I would also say if you want to train, go through, yeah, remove the time pressure and also do the geoguessr. But sometimes it would be cool to sit back and reflect on your thinking process and to go through the intelligence cycle and kind of see uh, how you worked the case. Because I feel that reflecting on the process you used helps you settle with what worked, what went well, what didn't go well, and it's a good learning moment as well.
Yeah, and there's really two things that I'm thinking when I see purple's comment. One is when you have time, make those processes, make those flow charts, make those standard operating procedures that show you what you should do when you don't have a lot of time. So when you don't have a lot of time to work through whatever type of a case you're working on, you already have that process. You don't have to come up with it. You're just executing on what previous you actually created. And then the second thing is just like what you were saying, I will do hours, tens of hundreds of hours of GeoGuessr doing the country streak, learning the different countries, learning the tool. And then you know what? Just a little while ago, I went back and did some of the daily challenges, did some of the new things
Mhm.
that they've got with co-op mode, which is really cool, and I was so much better. We get down and get to a place. I'm like, we're driving on the left. We have English there. We see the squiggly lines on there, but there's palm trees. This is Singapore, guaranteed. And boom, it was. So taking the time to practice your skill, your craft, maybe not under a time constraint, can help you when you actually need to use those skills in a time situation.
It sounds like learning to ride the bike in the beginning, or learning to drive a car. In the beginning, you have to have all these different things in mind, but it sounds, and like what you're saying right now, is that eventually they become an automated process that runs in the background. I think, well, this is the goal for every analyst. It runs in the background and it works.
Yeah. Well, then
It's
also
a process that works.
you're getting more experience. You mentioned
Yeah,
it earlier.
that's the
Nico
point.
mentioned it. You're we analyze things with the experiences we have. And if all I know is what's here in the United States, because I've never been outside the United States, then I don't know about how people drive or what signs look like or whatever. Here you're gaining that experience. And when you do GeoGuessr with, tens or hundreds of your online friends here in live stream mode, I learned from Horg and from Zevin and from all of the other Death Knight and all these other wonderful viewers of our stream.
Good.
Yeah. So, are we at the end of the stream?
No,
You want to mention the last thing?
you want to mention
Okay,
one
I
last
do.
thing.
You know I do. I get all excited about this, Christina.
I
So,
know.
for those of you that have been watching on social media, I took a tool called Obsidian, which is a note making tool like Evernote, not even like Evernote. It's a tool that you use to make notes in, and it's free for most people. People that are doing work in a company of two and more employees, they ask that you buy a commercial license. But for personal use, for educational use, for single person entities, it's a free tool. What I've done is I've played around with it and seen some of the really cool power in this tool for OSINT. And I'm not saying you should use the training on OSINT training. I've created a video that is 100% free. You just come and you go to I'll paste it in here. You just come to the OSINT training site and you scroll down to here. Watch Micah use Obsidian. You don't have to register for an account. You don't have to pay any money or anything like that. But I'll show you in a 20-minute long video or so what Obsidian is, why it's so cool for us, and over here at my GitHub repository, I have Obsidian templates here that you can use to, one, play with the tool, and two, use them in your investigation. So it is a tool that I'm finding a lot of really, really use for. It's free. Here's the actual URL, obsidian.md. And if you just click on that little button on my OSINT training site, again, no paying me for anything. Um, you can watch a video. It's it Christina, for me, I heard angels singing
I know.
when I well, it was neat because I'm a big proponent of mind maps. I know that
I was
other
about to mention it. What about us that love mind maps, Mike?
it
Can we?
has mind maps built into it. You can manually create the mind maps, or it will automatically take your outline of data and it will make a mind map from that automatically. You can do tasks in there, you can do calendar events, you can do a lot of things, and everything is stored on your local computer. So if you're worried, oh, another company is going to have my data, no, it's quite the opposite. On your computer, you have all of the text files that go along with this. You can embed images or other files in your work. And like I said, for most of us, it's 100% free. So take some time. Again, there's no requirement that you buy anything here. I have a preview video that you can just go and watch and see if you can even speed it up because I speak very slowly sometimes. But watch the video, learn about the tool, and if you're somebody that likes to just jump in, there's some example files that I've pasted out there that can help you do that.
But hey, I want to add that, Micah, you have a free preview video. In that free preview video, you also refer to other free resources on how to get started with Obsidian,
Yep.
which I found very useful. And with those resources alone, you can set up a workspace that that's pretty functional there.
Yeah, exactly. And again,
So,
I'm not saying you have to buy anything on MyOSINT training, not trying to promote that or anything, but in the video
but
I
this is a
talk
cool
about
tool.
yeah, it's just a really cool tool. Linking Your Thinking has an amazing, amazing YouTube channel that's got like 7 videos that show you, not with an OSINT perspective, but it shows you how to actually use the tool, how things work a little bit more, and a couple of other resources out there too. I'm still learning how to do things in it, and I just get very excited because it's fine. It allows us to link different pieces of data. Some of you might be familiar with Maltego and how you can do these network graphs of linking this node to that node. This is that, but so much more because we're linking our notes and saying, hey, this person has all of this data about them and they're a member of this group and they belong to that company and here's the other people that they are in their family. And we can link all of these documents and then we can look at the data and see what patterns emerge. Very powerful and impressive. And I love it.
I feel that since you discovered it and based on all your comments in the between the OSINT Curious members, since you discovered this tool, you just wake up with a smile on your face.
I I actually look forward to taking notes now.
I
Um, I
know.
wa I was stuck in OneNote for years, and I dealt with it. It was okay, but essentially I would make a note, and then sometimes I'd go back to it, but most of the time it was just dead unless I searched for it. With Obsidian, all of your notes are alive. It's constantly looking for those connections, whether you know about them or not. So take 20 minutes and look at it again. No pressure to do anything, to buy anything. It's all free to use the tool to run the example stuff that I have out there, and I think you'll find a lot of value in it.
Maybe you will also hear angels singing like
Yeah,
Mike
that's right.
and wake up with a smile on your next project.
Yeah. Well, and the neat thing is that, it's a sufficiently complex tool that there's always more to learn to get better at it, to use it more effectively or more efficiently. Not just new features, but just how to do things even more optimally. And um, it's uh, it's fun. So I've been enjoying playing with it for the last couple of weeks, and I have switched over my hundreds or thousands of OneNote notes over to it. That was a pain. But it really is something that I like using for my general note taking and definitely for investigations.
Yes, very good.
Yeah. Well, Christina, it looks like we're at the end of the live stream.
Yes, I think for today these are the resources we wanted to cover, but we have also been thinking of continuing adding and sharing some news like today. Also, let us know what you think. If you have something that you believe requires attention and we should look into it, you can always tag us on Twitter or share it with us. Yeah, it is a community. We share the news with one another. We come here. This is a platform where we also put them out there in a structured way. Micah?
Yeah, absolutely. For some of you that have been our loyal viewers for a while, I know that we've been slowing down on our live streams. We're going to be picking them up. And like Christina said, we're going to be bringing you some real value in highlighting some of these tools, highlighting some of these techniques in future live streams. So stay tuned to our social media, and I look forward to talking with you in the future.
Next week we have Sector.
That's right.
He will discuss his blog post.
It'll be on Friday. We're going to reschedule Sector for next Friday. So if you came here for Sector 035,
Come back.
he'll be on next week. He was feeling a little under the weather today, so we gave him a break. And thank you to our listeners, our viewers here for helping us out too.
Thank you very much for being here today. It was a pleasure to start again, seeing you all, communicating with you all, and sharing news. And thank you, Micah, for this really nice conversation.
Absolutely. Take care.
Have a wonderful evening on my time zone and day if you are on Micah's time zone in the US.
Yeah.
But have a good day, everyone, and a good weekend ahead.
Bye. Stay
Goodbye.
ocean curious.
Stay OSINT Curious.